Welcome to the weekend must watch on Intercut, the weekly show going through the movies, TV, and entertainment that people just can't cut away from. I'm your co host Arturo Zurita, and joining me to teach me what a short squeeze is, even though I've seen it in a couple of movies, it's Zachary Shevich. What's up, dude?
You see, when the people on Wall Street, the venture capitalists, think that a
Yeah.
stock is artificially high. No, I don't really
Like
want
I'm
to get
five.
into
Like I'm five, bro.
I mean, I don't really want to get into all that, and I'm not sure Dumb Money really wants to get into the nitty gritty of all
It
that either.
didn't.
But I don't know. Maybe that's going to make it a better, more entertaining watch. Maybe it's actually what that movie was missing. I guess we'll find out when we get into it. But we're back from Toronto. We had a couple weeks off to go catch movies at TIFF. I like your mug. I kind of wish I grabbed one of my own.
You were there, bro, when I couldn't decide this one or the other one. I had to go for the yellow.
Are you liking your decision? Do you feel like you went the right one, or did you want that? Like, we were choosing between the TIFF branded one or the 2023 specific one that's like all one color.
And I'm curious to know from the inner cuties, are y'all people who like having the year? Like, you want to know you want to have the memorabilia of the moment you were there, or are you more like us? You want it more timeless. So I went for the more timeless one because I have a Sundance one that's just like this. You put them on top of each other, they're the same manufacturer. So I'm starting to combine these. So now I have kind of like two sets of the bigger mugs and the smaller mugs. But I'm curious, are you a year person, or are you someone who likes it cleaner? To me, I'd be a year person if they did that South by thing that they did, where they started doing it like a music festival, where they put the lineup of movies on the shirt.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's when I'd
yeah.
be a year person. So
Yeah.
far, I'm liking it, dude.
I like sometimes getting the year specific thing though, just because my memory is really bad and remembering like which years I did a certain thing in. It's helpful to have like it written on the piece of merch for me.
That's
Helps me. Yeah, it helps me put myself in a certain time and place at least.
When you're noxing it, you're like, wait, when was it?
Hopefully not.
Man.
Hopefully no short-term memory loss for me, but
yeah.
a lot. Yeah, we'll get into all of those TIFF movies in our next live stream after this one, our big TIFF recap. And we've also got our top 10 movies of TIFF with some special guests coming later this week. So make sure you're stay tuned to the Intercut Podcast channel. But we're back on the weekend must-watch grind because there's a lot of movies that everybody got a chance to see, and us included. I don't know if you squeezed some of these movies in before we went to Toronto or in the days since we came back, but
I had one of them, and then the rest I just had a massive movie day when we came back. Finally,
nice.
you know when you leave a film festival watching 6 movies a day to come back to watch 4 movies a day, it was one of those. But there's still a couple of decent ones on there. I think we should start with the one that actually played at Toronto. You had the chance to see it there at the world premiere.
Yeah, the world premiere, which did not really have any of the stars, so it didn't feel like a world premiere.
Like a world premiere.
But regardless, I was first. I got to leave my YouTube comment first.
So tell Toronto. The people about Dumb Money, the newest movie from Craig Gillespie that's talking about the GameStop debacle.
Yeah, Dumb Money is the first past the post movie to adapt the GameStop stock saga of late 2020, early 2021, still ongoing, depending on your opinion, into a movie based on the book The Unsocial Network, which is from the same author, Ben. I think Ben Maestris is how you pronounce his last name, who wrote the Social Network book. So it's got some of that DNA in there. It's also got a producer tag from The Winkelweis, which is a little bit weird.
We'll bring that one back.
Yeah, we'll return to that one. But this is telling the first story of how some regular investors, people who do not make their living on the stock market and more are making speculative buys, ended up sort of forming this like massive, powerful economic force and subverting Wall Street's expectations by shooting GameStop stock through the roof. It's a unusual story, kind of stranger than fiction kind of thing. There is a lot of like really interesting aspects to how the industry is kind of rigging these stocks to perform in certain ways that benefit the largest investors. And Dem Money doesn't really want to get into all of that. It's more about the cultural kind of subversion, and there's lots of references to tendies and diamond hands and the kinds of things that you would see posted on Wall Street Bets at the time. I thought it was like kind of breezy in the way that it takes you through a lot of those details, but it also, because it doesn't really stop to explain a lot of them or interrogate a lot of them, it's more of just like an ensemble comedy in that sort of subversive Craig Gillespie writing style. I don't know. I didn't really take a lot more away from this than I think I would have from like reading a Wikipedia, aside from maybe a couple fun performances. But what did you think of Dumb Money?
Or the book, right?
Yeah.
I agree with you. It needed more Margot Robbie explaining, the stocks and how they actually work, like previous movies have done. But here, it really is dependent on the cast. I thought that a majority of how they explain things to you is through B-roll. I don't know how you feel about that. Like, if I'm watching a movie, I don't want then Stephen Colbert from an old clip explaining what happened with GameStop. I don't need to see you cutting away to other news clippings, because to me that's just like a YouTube video montage. I want to see the characters, the actors that you hired kind of bring that to life. And there are some moments in there where that happens, but yeah, they leave it to like clips that have already been out there. To me, that doesn't work as well. The one time when I think that mesh of reality and what's happening with the actors works is when they're having like the Congress hearings, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
So to me, the movie really stands out, like you were saying, from that cultural perspective of being someone who invested their money in there. How it was led, how honestly it became a little bit more than a movement. There was like an ethos to this. People were sticking it to the man and not even making it be about money.
Right. It became less of an investment and more of like a political stance,
how to blow up a stock over here, honestly, because there was a lot of people who they should have pulled out when they should have, but they were kind of following this dude's manifesto that was on an Excel sheet. That I found fascinating, and it kind of teetered between wanting to go fully in on that and then also wanting it to be like, no, it's all memes and culture and all these different things. They're very slick on a lot of moments, they present to you how there's a lot of language used on these subreddits. I'm like, okay, were we going to dive in deeper? And then I realized they only said that so that the audience knows for 30 minutes later why they get shut down. He's like, but that was always there. I was like, okay, sure. Yeah, right. That's still an issue, though.
There's a moment where they're like, there's anti-Semitic messages and death threats on the board, and someone literally just goes, that's only a small section.
Yeah, that's a small little. I didn't care for that in the narrative because it felt like the movie was using it to justify how they wanted you to feel about something instead of really interrogating it. And you can't be interrogating these rich people and not every other aspect of it.
Exactly. Like, as true as some of those things might be, like, to sort of brush over them, I think is ignoring some of the most interesting aspects of this, the sort of like unfettered language of it, and the sort of like unruly nature to it is so central to like what the movement was sort of like. It is kind of about like anarchy and chaos and I don't know. I think there's a more interesting movie that would actually acknowledge those things, but it felt a little bit too much like an overview and a lack of specificity. You mentioned that scene that sort of shows you everybody preparing to speak at the congressional hearing, and it kind of gives you. I liked it. It gives you like the behind the scenes of that. That's some of the best stuff in the movie because it feels really centered in an actual moment with like actual human emotions and gives you insight to these people. For the rest of it, I didn't feel that specificity. And I think a lot of that is because most of these people, the people that are being shown, played by people like Anthony Ramos and Mahala Harold, there's a lot of really American Ferrara, a lot of really good actors in this film. They don't feel as specific. And I think it's because they're mostly amalgam characters. They're not actually based on real people. They're kind of compilations of ideas of people or people that were interviewed for the book. And I think it just ends up not really feeling centered in reality, just in sort of like the movie's reality, if that makes any sense.
100%. Just breaking these three down right here. And I would even include Nick Offerman. Nick Offerman has just been the go-to dude who just comes in to either be a MAGA person or a big rich person or whatever it is. But like you were explaining for the three kind of central characters, or not central, but outside of the main plot that are all being influenced,
Yeah.
America plays this nurse who is investing all her money because she kind of believes in this. Harold and I forget who the other actress is, who's like her roommate. Oh, Talia Ryder, damn, shout out her.
Yeah.
Those two are the they're both in school together in college, and they believe in it to a degree that they're following his manifesto. Anthony Ramos is a GameStop employee who's just there, and he thinks it's kind of cool to jump on it because he hates his corporate overlords. One of which is his boss, who follows things to a T, and I knew immediately who that guy was, bro. I don't know when it clicked for you, but the moment I heard his voice, and there's his crow eyes right here, I knew exactly who it was. The moment they reveal his mask and they show him,
That was a jump scare for me. I had no idea he was in this movie.
I knew it was him, but they didn't need to do that with him. That was super creepy, and that man has played superhero villains. But you look at these three characters, and I knew right off the bat what was going to happen to each one. I knew which one wasn't going to pull out. I knew one of them was, and I knew the other, they were going to find like a middle ground. Oh, yes,
Right.
they didn't pull out, but then also got the money that they needed. Like you said, it's an amalgamation of real people that they end up just feeling like stock characters for the movie. For the rest of them, though, you have your two main characters in Paul Dano, his wife played by Shailene Woodley, who they got her way, way back over here. I thought they had an interesting dynamic. I wish we saw more of them. A lot of their time is then split with the family that I do think has funny moments. There's this one sequence early on where they're driving and the mom gets scared. It scares the dad, which scares them in the back. And it's this ripple effect.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting for the themes of the movie of what can happen when someone pulls out, and everyone gets scared. I've also been in that scenario driving where you get a passenger who freaks out and then it causes this ripple effect. But then you have Pete Davidson, who I thought was funny at the beginning. And then they let Pete Davidson maybe a little too much.
I mean, you got him, you got to use him, I guess.
Sure, I suppose.
I don't know if it feels like Pete Davidson being inserted and not Pete Davidson playing a character, which, like, your mileage may vary on that. He's definitely, like, funny, but it's one of the things that also makes it feel like more of an artificial world and not like actual characters responding to the reality that they're living in.
Yeah. Overall, that was decent. I don't know if there was any other characters like Sebastian Stans playing one of the Robin Hood bros.
Yeah.
Looking creepier than he did in the Hulu show, the FX one.
Yeah. Or creepier than, what was it, Feast too? That's another thing, is that like the epilogue of the film kind of tells you more about that character, and that's kind of one of the things that I feel like would have been good to see, but I feel like maybe they were worried about libel or something if they showed the text messages. I don't know, but
yeah, and that's what brings up the producers.
Yeah, right.
If you feel that there are certain parts of the story that feel a little too focused on when they could have shifted some over here, or like they're going after certain people, you start thinking of who the producers are on this movie, and I think back to what The Social Network did that came from this writer who also did this one, and it makes me wonder if the twins didn't like The Social Network, what reverse engineering did they do to make sure they were attached on the follow-up book? Why are they producers on this?
Right.
Did they go to school with some of these capital fund, these hedge fund people? I think there's too much behind the scenes for them to have just joined a project, one that was flipped so fast. So I think it's a little sketch there. But hey, that would be for Dumb Money 2 or whatever follow-up they would have there.
Yeah. It definitely feels like a betrayal of the movie's ethos, as in like the elites are ignoring the and taking advantage of the regular man, brought to you by people who run crypto scams that take advantage of regular people.
It made no sense, bro. Yeah. It almost like, hey, look over here, look over there. I'm gonna fund this other movie. But yeah, Dumb Money out in theaters now. It's getting wider.
Perfectly watchable, just kind of not much beneath the surface. One more question, actually, before we move on. Do you feel like it's impossible to make one of these like good this soon after it happens? I feel like we need at least like a 5-year moratorium on any biopic.
I would agree with you probably 9 out of 10 times. I'm
Yeah.
not gonna say no because there have been some where they flip them really fast, and it's that immediacy of it that's pretty good. A lot of the times it's more salacious, right? It's because things are still going on that it feels like why is there a Gabby Petito doc? Wow, while we're still looking for her. Why is there Tiger King was one of those where it helps build a lot of hype while it's still happening. But are they as concrete as something where they take their time? Absolutely not. So there's a bunch of these on the horizon. I don't know if you would recommend this out in theaters or if you would recommend it at home, just like Netflix's, which is also still in the works, right? Like, is that going to be a bigger hit because it knows how to release it to audiences out there? I would recommend some other ones that we've also brought up at festivals in the past. Diamond Hands was a really good documentary out of South by. Gets into the culture. It's pretty much a documentary version of this as they go through a bunch of the people who were involved in it. But like, there's going to be a dozen of them. I know HBO had a series that I think had one of the Succession boys narrating it, if you remember that. So there's already a lot of content about this event. And at least the money was enjoyable enough. So I do agree with you there.
Yeah, I feel like it's maybe stream at home, but it's not the worst thing to see. Maybe your junior price tier is what makes sense.
I might junior price it. So if it's $5 at the movie theater, go for it.
Yeah.
This next one, I've been seeing too many split decisions on, bro. The Equalizer 3 is the finale to the trilogy that stars Denzel Washington, but more importantly, it is a trilogy where him and I would say one of his biggest collaborators, Antoine Fuqua, have collaborated together for every single installment. In the first one, I found it to be kind of Denzel taking the reins of doing his Taken. In 2, while he wasn't using guns in the first, he started using a couple more there. In 3, they kind of switched things up a bit, and this guy who equalizes things begins as this violent being, and then it's kind of just chilling the whole movie. It is about the retirement of his character in this little Italy town that kind of serves like a Western, where he realizes, I'm finally starting to feel at home somewhere. But then a bunch of mafiosos come in, and he's got to decide, should I unretire in order to properly live in this place that I want to?
Yeah, it's got that like old-fashioned feel,
which I liked.
Of like enforcer comes to small town and protects the people there. Like it's like a Walking Tall or something like that.
Yeah,
which
I go back to like Death Wishes.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a solid premise, and particularly when you have somebody as charismatic as Denzel at the center of it, it's gonna become like inherently that much more watchable. So you were talking about the previous 2 Equalizer movies. Is this movie their equal? Do you like it more or maybe a little less than them?
I still think one is the best, and I'll just break it down easily. I think Denzel gets the most action in the first one.
Yeah.
You actually get to see him fight a lot. I like those moments where he kind of has something. They say it in the behind the scenes as well, but they never make it the forefront in the movie. You remember The Accountant with Ben Affleck?
Yeah.
That was like part of their marketing. What if he also had like ADD or something? Like that was a big push.
He's a little on the spectrum or something.
Yeah, he's a little on the spectrum, but he can fight and count. Here, it's never been a part of the marketing. But when you watch these movies, Denzel plays a lot with like napkins and stuff, and it also ends up being part of his superpower, where he kind of does the Sherlock Holmes things. He can acknowledge everything in the room and then execute a plan.
Yeah,
I think the first one also had a much better duo where they had Chloe Grace Moretz. Chloe Grace Moretz, having rewatched the entire trilogy, I like that back and forth between them two. I was really excited for this repairing, bro.
Hey, man. Man on Fire
is one of his best movies.
Is that a top 3 Denzel for you? I think that's easy top 3 Denzel for me.
It is one of my favorites. I would probably say top 3 for sure.
Yeah.
Poor girl, man. She got mopped in this movie.
Yeah.
It's part of the character, right? She is coming in playing, I'm not sure how much of it is in the trailers, but kind of a counterpart, someone who is also looking for these same mafiosos, but she doesn't really know who he is, so they're kind of playing off of each other. Yeah, can they help each other? Is she trying to like kind of pin him? He's that person of interest when really he's just an interesting person. Man, I don't know. There is one specific sequence where he just like, he spins her around, dude, and there's nothing she could do about it. And it felt like I was watching Dakota Fanning come out of retirement, and she was not ready to go up against Denzel, who, like LeBron, has not taken a season off, man. He says this comments about her accent. I think he said that on the spot. Because they released that clip without that line, and I'm like, no. If you watch this movie, her reaction to that, she looks so embarrassed, and I think Denzel got that out of her, man. I didn't like a lot of the back and forth between the two of them because it felt like he was really just it was her training day, really.
Yeah.
But I did appreciate the rest of it. It is a slow movie. I don't know how you felt about it being kind of a retirement movie for him, where he's not really in the forefront fighting. He's like a boogeyman in the background. I don't think they even need Denzel. Denzel will act, and then they'll have the stunt double in the shadows, just like killing people off. I don't think it's the best out of the trilogy, but I think it's a perfect way to wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, I think it works mostly because Denzel carries like a pathos around that, like when he is walking through the town, it's not just an actor walking through a quaint Italian town. It's Denzel reevaluating all the choices that he's made in his life to get him to this point where he's confronted by this beauty, right? Like he's an actor who can kind of convey the weight of that. So I think it becomes that much more watchable. The plot is not really like that involving, and I don't really need it to take a front seat. I kind of like the bareness of it and just sort of allowing the performances to take center stage. Maybe if the performances around Denzel were to Denzel's level, this would be like a great movie. But like it also has these moments of like kind of brutal action that are a bit unexpected, like even more brutal than I think you expect from a movie like this, kind of verging on body horror. And it's not like
easily.
Yeah, it's not as inventive as like the nail gun finale of the first Equalizer movie, but like it's some pretty satisfying action beats, you know, in the mold of like Taken or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think it mostly delivers. It maybe not this is maybe like a tier below even like go see it in the theater. This is like a wait for it on streaming for me, but like, you know, I it usually takes a lot for me to dislike watching Denzel, particularly in this mode. It's an uncomplicated pleasure. I feel like it's a pretty easy, if not very involving watch.
Yeah, like I said, I'd put the first one still at number one. I'd say this is just a hair above the second one, in my opinion. They try to combine. If you watch the trilogy, I think it'd be helpful. It's not necessary, but it does lead to a big conclusion that they have at the end of 3, because there is a storyline between one and 2 that gets wrapped up here. It's just that you have to realize that the first one is like a crime action thriller, and this ends as a crime drama. This one is definitely more on the drama side with hints of that action there. So if you know that, I would recommend it as a junior price. If you've been bored from the Equalizer series, this is not going to equalize it for you. Save it at home. But for me, I think it's cool that the 3 of them, or the 2 of them, have been able to come together for this trilogy. And I'm curious what they do with it. I mean, they already got the Queen Latifah series out there.
Yeah,
I'm sure this will be rebooted in other ways. But
that's the thing. It's a much bigger property than like I think most people even realize. Like the Equalizer and Equalizer 2 are number 4 and 5 on Denzel's list of highest grossing films. Like these are the most successful movies that he's been a part of.
Too. He never does sequels, so that's a big deal.
Yeah, so and you know, I think every older actor kind of seems to enjoy getting a couple of these in. So
hell yeah,
I
think he should continue it.
Yeah.
I would love to see him just come in now that he could do more drama, and then someone else could do the punching.
Right.
I'm gonna pitch you this one. They've been talking about what if they did a flashback, have 4 be a flashback, and I don't know, maybe have a young
John David
Washington out there.
Hey man, he's evolving into like an action star as well. He's got Creator coming out. I'd be there for it. I'd be okay with them switching it up from Fuqua, maybe. But
that too?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. But Equalizer 3 out in theaters now. It should be available at home very, very soon. So keep your eyes out for that one if you're interested. Interestingly enough, this next movie is the newest movie of the week and lost to last week's movie. This week's it's A Haunting in Venice, the third from Kenneth Branagh that's going through the book series from Agatha Christie, who was kind of played by
Tina Fey.
Tina Fey in this movie?
Yeah.
Look, I like the first one. The second one is goofy. I was really anticipating this one. I did not love it, but Zach, what is your take on the newest mystery thriller horror
Yeah.
starring Kenneth Branagh.
A Haunting in Venice, absolutely. So yeah, it returns Kenneth Branagh to the mustache, the twirly mustache he loves to don in these movies as Hercule Poirot, the famed detective. I think the thing that's interesting to me about A Haunting in Venice is that this is the one that it feels like it's sort of like leaning into genre a little bit. As you mentioned, it is kind of a ghost film, a kind of a horror film, and to me that did freshen it up a little bit. At least it gave it a little bit more perspective, a little bit more beneath just the Sherlockian detective gets to the bottom of this chamber piece murder mystery. So I don't know. I actually think I enjoyed this one maybe more than the previous two. Definitely more than the last one. Maybe on par with Murder on the Orient Express. It's got it's got like actors that I like, even if none of them are necessarily doing their best work here. I did find it kind of funny that he's reuniting the Belfast gang with both Jamie Dornan and Jude Hill, the young kid in this movie.
Stop. The little creepy kid who's always reading books? That's the kid from Belfast?
That's the cute little kid from Belfast.
Ugh, okay.
Jacob Tremblayan Range, I guess.
Okay, sure.
I don't know. It's certainly, I think the movies are not necessarily the most like artfully executed. There are some interesting shots. He loves to throw in a Dutch angle, but I think they end up spending so much time in close-up that they don't necessarily like establish what's going on in scenes where there's like an ensemble or some action, and then they also throw so many names at you without ever really making the characters that distinctive that I do end up like weirdly lost in what feels like a pretty simple murder mystery. So I don't know if it's like great as like a suspense film, but I at least kind of felt the vibe, at least in this one, with the ghost element underscoring this murder mystery.
I agree with you that it's a much more interesting plot.
Yeah.
But damn, did I not care for any of these characters here, man.
Yeah.
The one from the last one, they're not the best actors either, but I remember those characters standing out a lot more than these here. There are characters that make decisions here once you realize like who's doing what, but it's really the other person doing it with them and with and without. There's so much mumbo jumbo happening towards the end of this movie because they're dealing with the spirituality of it. Like we're mentioning it being a horror movie. This is a faith-based film at some point for Poirot, and like my only issue with that is that the ending to the last two already kind of covered that. I don't know if you remember the ending to the second one, but spoiler alert, he has a really big moment where he gets rid of a big feature on his face. That's supposed to be him growing out.
Right.
That don't matter at the beginning of this one, so it's like I don't get the point there. Plus, he relearns the lesson that he already did about moving on and unretiring. So when he unretires yet again, he's just Brett Favreing it. I don't see the character development there. I saw a lot of the characters here having goals that kind of they don't even mesh together. Like Tina Fey's character, I thought had the dumbest motivation, had some of the like dumbest lines given to her. What they do with Michelle Yeoh's character, I thought was embarrassing at times. They had this poor lady pretending to be in a seance, and the way they captured her, like you were saying, in certain shots, just looked terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a COVID thing, right? Maybe the other ones had a much bigger set that they were able to use, and here because of that, I don't know. There's close-ups. I did not care for the wishy-washiness of when is it ghosts and when is it just someone getting duped. Right. And I'm not a big fan of movies using, cutting to something that isn't real, because you have to have more of a in a detective story especially. You need to kind of not dupe your audience in a certain way, because then there's no fun in the mystery for me. So I don't hate it. I think it's an interesting take on them. But I was going to ask you a question that I see Devesh already asked in the live stream. You have a detective with an accent and a mustache and an A-list class. Do you ever think that at some point down the line between Knives Out, this is going to be able to surpass that genre or be the one on top in these murder mystery movies out there?
I mean, I just think that Kenneth Branagh is not the level of filmmaker that Rian Johnson
How is he
is.
not, though? Besides these movies, right? And
Yeah.
I know someone called him director of Artemis Fowl, which was a terrible diss
Yes.
that I read this past week. He's made good movies.
He is probably one of our foremost adapters of Shakespeare to the big screen.
Yeah.
But even in those films, I feel like there is still like a staginess, a kind of like style of presentation that you can see echoed in his Poirot movies, and they just I don't know if it fits the genre as well as the dynamicism that Rian Johnson brings into it. I think Rian is also just craftier and more subversive. You know, he with stuff like Poker Face, not even just his Knives Out work, he sort of found a way to modernize but also throw back to the classics in the genre. I don't know, man. Kenneth Branagh is a really fantastic actor. I've never been quite as sold on him as a filmmaker, particularly as a filmmaker who's going to make, you know, something that will blow me away or really surprise me. When his films are good, they're like very solid. I don't want to take that away from him, but I've also never seen a Kenneth Branagh film and felt like, well, that's one of the best films I've ever seen.
He did not feel that after Belfast. I can guarantee that.
That's for sure. Some Oscar voters did. I did not.
But I could see that. I see people mentioning in the chat, you know, when you have one director who's more modern and taking place in this setting, and like you mentioned, being able to also call back the past, he's getting the best of both worlds. Whereas I feel his best casting has been in the first movie. I think it's aged even better, to be honest, with who he cast in the first Murder of the Orient Express and how that plays out than what he's been doing now. But I don't know. Hopefully in the future, I feel he's going to continue them. That's the one thing I will give this movie. This movie feels like it ends with him going, all right, now I'm really in, guys. I expect one of these every year and a half. So, okay.
As much as I haven't loved any of them, I kind of don't mind. I don't think that the chamber piece murder mystery is like a fun genre to play in. And especially if he can do, like, this movie not being the best aside, if he can continue to do this thing where it's like, okay, now it's like a murder mystery, but also a little bit of this. And like, maybe we're going to get, you know, like like White Lotus it or something, go all over the place. I don't know. I think there's like potential to still find interesting things to do here.
Yeah, I like the way he does the location, so I'm looking forward to the next one. I just wish this one hit a little bit better.
Yeah.
But moving on to the last one that we have in theaters is The Nun II, a movie that came out last week, and somehow, if I'm not mistaken, what I was reading up, it beat A Haunting in Venice at the box office. So that just shows you that the marketing either wasn't there,
our lifestyle,
or people aren't there for it. What did you think of Haunting in Venice not keeping a name? You know, The Nun II, it's in the chapter. But the other one, I think it's interesting to change up the name from Murder in the Orient Express to Death on the Nile to A Haunting in Venice. Do you think it hurts it? Do you think people even care that it's the third one in a movie? Where do you think it messed up to not be able to take the top spot?
Well, I think there's sometimes diminishing returns with a franchise, particularly when like the previous one wasn't exactly like a big hit or particularly well received. And, you know,
before COVID though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's like it's that movie's fault, but at the same time, you don't have the same audience investment there, right? Like, I'm sure there's some people out there who are like, well, I'm not going to see it because I didn't see the last one or whatever. Yeah, it's just never, I don't know. It feels like, to me, it feels more like diminishing returns of something rather than like the audience suddenly like deciding against this one, you know, even if it was like the continuing adventures of Kenneth Branagh as Hercule Poirot. I don't know if that would make much of a difference. The mustache
continues.
Yeah,
I feel like The Nun II just had the better marketing. The way that they've been pushing this movie out to make it feel like it's a part of an event. Yeah. We've been calling it the Thanos of this Conjuring universe, the CCU, and they really pushed that in here.
I mean, The Conjuring is also just like a dominant force in the past. Yeah, people underestimate it, but it's those movies make a lot of money, and I think just a horror like this is a lot simpler to sell too. Like, it just has to satisfy curiosity that it's sufficiently scary, right? Like, if the trailer looks scary, people who watch scary movies will show up.
Mm-hmm. On top of that, The Nun, out of all the Conjuring movies, made the most. This thing almost cracked $500 million. Like, they knew this was going to be the one that was going to get a sequel
That's
no
the
matter
stronger
what.
franchise right now.
Somehow. But it's not the stronger franchise right now, if that makes any sense. This is a movie where they know they could put whatever they want and people are going to go see this story. But it has come with some baggage. I don't know if you were reading up on what has happened in the background, but Bonnie Aarons, who plays the nun, has pushed to litigation because she has been getting no residuals on her image that is the nun. There's a great backstory for that. I want to cover it more a bit later, but that has caused a lot of stalling in the franchise, may cause a split on where the nun may go, because if you know the story of the nun, this is a character who takes the shape of whatever a main person is feeling or what their fear is.
Right.
Our main character here didn't want to take her vows in the first movie, and thus this demon pretends to be a nun. She's already taken her vows. Why is she still a nun? Why would it still be a nun years later when it combines with The Conjuring 2? I don't know. That is for them to figure out. But the nun makes a lot of money, so she's still going to continue using that. How that's going to deal with the behind-the-scenes drama, we'll see. But in this movie, it's kind of a round two for... what's her name's character? Let's see if I pop it up over here. Sister Irene, played by one of the Formiga sisters, who I think they're going to really combine, considering that obviously not Tessa, but Vera is the lead character for the Conjuring series. The way that they're kind of leading them up, I feel like there's going to be a relationship there.
It almost seems bizarre that they haven't done that yet.
I think that's what they're leading to, because they have a couple of sequences here, without getting into too much spoilers, where they're combining a lot of them to kind of showcase that the events from the Nun series is going to combine with the Conjuring, kind of bring everything full circle, so you kind of have really an Avengers, an MCU thing where you have all these different things going on. This is a movie that also kind of sets up more artifacts, where it reminds you a lot of the Pope's Exorcist, where that movie ends by telling you, and there was a lot of other exorcisms that we can make movies out of that he's covered in his books. It almost feels like they want to make a Nun series where they go through a lot of Catholic paintings and monuments and artifacts that they can kind of go and excavate and make these new different things where they fight new demons on a weekly basis. And somehow they're still allowed to make these into motion pictures. I didn't care for it too much. I think it ends in the same place that the first one ended. It's very redundant at times. And this is another one where it's become a faith-based movie. This is a film that is telling you that if the nun exists and is a demon, then the only way to beat it is through God. Praise be, hallelujah. This movie damn near ends in a prayer, in a revival circle. That is what these movies, ironically, have now become. I just wish they were a little bit... I was praying that they would be a little bit more interesting. I don't think there's anything wrong with the cast that they have. It's still a pretty strong cast. It's just not as strong a story, which I found kind of disappointing, because it has a writer that we really enjoy. Akilah Cooper, who did *Malignant*, who was able to really have that camp. She did *Megan* earlier this year. It could be because there's two other writers on here, and I heard that there was a couple of other changes that they threw as they were working on the movie. But I will give Michael Chavez credit on a lot of his visuals. I think he shot Conjuring 3 to look very well. I think La Llorona had some moments in there. He may not have the strongest scripts, but there are several moments in the Nun II. There's, in particular, this book stand magazine sequence. Fantastic. It looks beautiful, even if some of the jump scares are dumb as can be. So if you're a fan of the Nun series, I think this is just a little bit better than the first one. But the first one was less boring. It was more dumb, but less boring than this one. Obviously, they're going to continue these, so if you're a big fan of the Conjuring series, I'm curious where this lands on your timeline. This would still be in the lower half. Conjuring, still the strongest. Annabelle, and then I'd put the Nuns in there. So, if you're curious on this one, check it out. It is in theaters right now, but with it being Warner Bros.
I didn't want to catch it because I didn't catch the first. I need to make sure I'm...
That's what it was. It wasn't those loud IMAX trailers that wouldn't leave us alone. Zach didn't want to leave with Valak attached to him.
Exactly.
So Nun II, it's out in theaters. Another one we'll catch more up with it later when Zach catches it, but it's out on Netflix. Pablo Larraín's El Conde, a satire where he takes a real-life dictator from Chile and then says, what if I pretended he was a vampire, and kind of connected all of these different moments in history through him in this secret society that was happening in the background. Some very, very interesting stuff. I think his Wikipedia page is just as demented. You could have made this straightforward. That I was reading up more on a lot of Pablo's movies. They deal with the repercussions of what's happened in Chile. From No to The Club, Neruda. Like, he's already been talking about this for a long time. This was him kind of making his own crazy biopic take on him. So if you're interested in that, we'll talk more about it next week. But it is playing over on Netflix. A shortlisted one from Chile. Chile ended up picking The Settlers, which we will be talking about later on in our TIFF recap. But before we give a shout out to the Intercuties, we have a couple of TV series that, as I put up here, we're sadly saying goodbye to. Zach, tell me more about this.
Well, you want to start with Winning Time, which just aired. It's apparently season or series finale.
Nobody watched this last one, bro.
Season
2 came out with a whimper.
It did. I mean, I also put, if you want to put in the notion, the tweet from the author of the books, who was basically begging people to watch the show, that they needed to boost the numbers if they were going to get a third season and not end the show on the Celtics winning. I also thought I also thought,
spoiler, but that's terrible.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if you got to see it, but they did actually include a montage of the I guess mild spoiler for Winning Time of true history, sort of.
Okay.
But the show has a scene where Magic Johnson is sitting on the floor of the shower after losing to the Celtics, and it's supposed to be kind of like this low, and there's sort of an idea that maybe they'll come back for season 3 and they'll be back on a high. But then there's another scene where the Jeannie and Jerry Buss lay on the floor of the Staples Center and chant, and then there's like a weird montage of all the success the Lakers had. And if it feels like a last-minute addition, it's because apparently it's not the version that was sent to critics of this season. It is sort of the like pull in case of emergency ending they gave to the show, because they anticipated they would go for another season. So it obviously kind of like comes crashing to an end there. And I think the ending feels jarring in the way that a lot of season 2 felt jarring, because they, rather than do 10 episodes as they got in the first season, they were shortened to 7, which sort of meant that the timeline got weird, and they would randomly jump forward a year or a year and a half and then spend like a week on 2 episodes.
Gotcha.
It didn't really have the same zip and comprehensive feeling that the first season did, which is a shame, because we both really enjoyed that first season of Winning Time. And it still reached those highs occasionally in season 2, but it was so much messier and so much more a victim of the things that I think people criticized it for, the sort of like chaotic nature of it. I think in a lot of ways this show is sort of like like Marvel movies to me, or something like that, in that it's like, I'm a nerd about this stuff, so even if some of it is like a little bit like loud or obnoxious or exposition heavy, like it's the kind I enjoy it because it's stuff.
That's how they did it in the comics.
right exactly. So there's a part of me that is really sad that this show is not going to continue, that they can't like turn this into some kind of like anthology or something like that. I rewatched the first season not too long ago, and it starts on a flash forward to Magic Johnson being diagnosed with HIV, something that the show never worked up to, which makes it feel like that much more incomplete.
Wow. They got other dude.
Exactly. They got other two to just sort of like cut it off.
Damn, bro.
I don't know. And to think Adam McKay destroyed his relationship with Will Ferrell for this.
The fact that everybody is learning about that with this release is crazy to me, that they're now looking back at that. Sad moment. Sad for the series to be called Winning Time and then lose so hard. But if you remember, they never called it Showtime, as it was supposed to be the Showtime Lakers, because they weren't on Showtime. They were on HBO, which then was HBO Max, which is now Max. What if they get picked up by Showtime? And then they can be called Showtime.
Yeah, change the name back. I like that idea.
Why not?
Yeah.
I don't know. Hopefully they found a way there, but it kind of sucks because Adam McKay also obviously produced, directed a lot of Succession, which got to wrap up. So I don't know if things are souring over there, but it's Warner Bros. They don't know what they're doing. Barbie made $1 billion. Yeah. I got the VOD at home. Like Warner Bros. Just sucks, dude. Yeah. So that sucks to hear. But
yeah.
Hey,
I
at
mean,
least that first season's still really good.
I wonder how much of it is the show kind of not going in the direction people at HBO wanted it to. You know, there was rumors that
Cares.
there was some like squabbling behind the scenes during production of season 2, and
Ew,
how much of it
squabbling
is
at the Lakers.
right, and also how much of it is just can be blamed on the strike and them making cost cutting decisions because of
Sure.
that. But
That's short
yeah,
term, bro. That's yeah. I think it was a terrible marketing that they had for the second season. Nobody knew about it.
yeah.
I would be surprised every time there was a new episode, and I knew about it. So
It does make me
terrible.
wonder if shows like this really just need to be miniseries, and that, you know,
But
making
we
them
thought for almost yeah.
yeah, making them like an extended series in a way like just sets them up for failure. You know, like The Crown wouldn't be The Crown if there wasn't that promise that it would get all the way to, you know, modern royalty.
Yeah. Well, who knows? It was supposed to go all the way through Kobe, and now it's not. But tell me more about this other HBO show, How to with John Wilson, that I caught. What was the finale? I thought there was going to be more. They shortened him also to 7 episodes.
Yeah, yeah. Just a couple and out. That's it for one of the most singular creators out there right now.
Wait,
I
wait,
think
wait.
the
Final season?
final season.
He went off with that?
Yeah, man, it's over. It's gone.
Did you catch up on it all?
I did. I really loved those last couple of episodes. I thought it, you know,
Let me
it
pull these up
does
right here.
it does a lot of the stuff that John Wilson does best, in that he sort of like manipulates you and uses this sort of like odd footage in ways that are so unexpected. Like, he is the absolute king of B-roll, because the way that he's able to pair his narration with these images, it is so funny. I thought it was very clever that they sort of do this sort of showing you the magic trick element in the penultimate episode, where he reveals that one of the shots was staged on a soundstage in order for them to get a tax credit, and then
Yeah.
the episode culminates with that sort of like explosion thing. To me,
Mhm.
it's sort of like that is the clear influence of like Nathan Fielder or something like that
Yeah.
on the show, where it gets a little bit more meta and a little bit more surprising, I guess, because you like it, you know, it has this appearance of a documentary, but it's comedy. Like, it's being manipulated for the sake of comedy. So I thought that was kind of brilliant.
I think that this season, How to Work
Mhm.
Out and How to Watch the Game were some of the best episodes he's released, dude.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely adore them. I would recommend, if you haven't even seen any of the other episodes, catch those. I thought How to Watch Birds was the worst episode he ever
Really?
released.
I thought
I
those were the
thought-
best.
I thought it was an excuse to talk about how he felt about something that was called out for him.
Mm-hmm.
And then instead of being like, yeah, it was fake, and so were all these other things, is a way to double down on the thing you felt insecure about, in my opinion. To me, I had a big issue with season 2 being that his whole premise is him the one with the camera. He's the one with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started obviously showcasing that he's got several people who record it, which kind of takes away from it. I think the whole push has always been that, and that episode was him saying, yeah, well, it's a show. What did you expect? I think it's him.
I don't know. Like, maybe that's your love of it, but I think it doesn't necessarily have to be him behind the camera. He's the one who's sort of like orchestrating it, and the idea is that like these are the things that we can all sort of like come across. You know, to me, the thing that's really beautiful about the show is not like, look at all these things that he saw, but rather like, look at all the things that you just see out in the world. Like, one of the things that I'm really sad about in losing this show, and one of the things that I think they do extremely well in that final episode, How to Track Your Package, is that he is one of the most curious documentarians out there. And he's somebody who has a willingness and an interest in profiling the types of people who just simply do not show up in other stuff. He's talking about he's able to highlight stories that are not shown anywhere else in media, whether it's like going to some guy's house who like who makes like masturbation material for other people online, or the guy who's like chronicling everything that happened on The Bachelor, or that final like really kind of melancholy visit to the man who like self-castrated. Like, it's just like he uncovers these really unique people. And, you know, like part of the charm is that it is him being welcomed into all of these places, but the idea that sort of connects them is just a curiosity about the world around you.
100%.
Yeah.
And to me, 5 is the take of sometimes I can't get the shot that I want, so I fabricate it. That is exactly what he says in episode 5. How to Watch Birds is this idea that the people who watch birds, you're taking the entire society of bird watchers' word for when they see something.
Yeah.
And he addresses that as like, wow, some people can be liars. I feel guilty. I actually kind of lied to y'all about some things. And in not apologizing for it and saying it's wrong over here, I kind of did the same thing.
Yeah.
Actually, I've done it a couple of other times as well. And then I'm going to double down on this with what you said. It's interesting, this implosion episode. I felt like it was just him pulling a Tom Cruise. Never apologize for something that you know you wouldn't like done elsewhere.
Right. And I guess the idea is whether or not you think he needs to apologize for that. I think that
he felt the need to make an episode about it.
No, I mean I think he's exploring the idea of reality and documented reality, because obviously everything is sort of heightened or altered once it's documented, and the point of documentary is to sort of highlight different truths, but sometimes in order to highlight those truths you have to include things that aren't always truthful, and whether that is stage shots and recreations and stuff like that, those are elements that have been central to documentary filmmaking all the way back to Nanook of the North,
For sure.
Yeah, so I think it's just an inventive comedic take on something that is central to documentary. I don't feel lied to. I feel like he's sort of just opened the curtain a little and given us a peek. I kind of love that, to be honest.
I think he confessed to some shots that people thought were all him, and him going, okay, some of them weren't, but hey, that's the way things are.
Yeah. To me, that doesn't make it any lesser of a show.
And I don't think it makes it lesser of a show. I think it's just a way to be like, okay, what I was selling you wasn't what I was selling you.
Sure, but I think you always have to take that attitude into documentary.
Well, we're also split on the Nathan Fielder thing, which I think is what you're saying. He has a lot of influence there. I also feel that Nathan Fielder covering what he did in the rehearsal was him also going so close to committing what he's calling out in the rehearsal. So
yeah, but you got to be on that edge of danger. I don't know. I love that stuff. Speaking of getting help from other filmmakers, that GQ interview that I linked to, it's really fascinating look into the end of the series. But inside of that, he talks about getting Steven Soderbergh's help for that shot of the car exploding.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Yeah.
So clearly the luminaries are giving John Wilson his approval. I don't know. I'm just very I feel very kind of bittersweet about this ending, just because I love the show. I'm so thankful that it exists. I think particularly that last episode is so beautiful, and his little thank you for watching my movies kind of made me well up. But I also just I mourned the idea of this guy not being able to make this stuff more on the regular. I hope we'll see a lot more from John Wilson. Maybe he's going to move into feature-length documentaries or whatever. Easily. But this is just such an interesting medium for his talents, and there's nothing else out there like it. There's other great comedies, there's other interesting documentaries, but there's nothing that's like How To with John Wilson.
I agree. I went all the way back to catch some of his older stuff on Vimeo. Have you seen his How to Sundance?
I actually haven't.
Bro, man. I'm gonna send you the link.
Please.
We'll probably even link it down below. Again, I appreciate that episode for what it is and for what he's revealing. That almost like you said, Wizard of Oz, peel behind the curtain.
Right.
But there's just something about his honesty that, to me, that's what's always attracted me. Not having to fabricate something. And they hired this man to go do Sundance. Bro, when I tell you it's everything that we vent about and more, he actually went the year of 2017, my first year. So I had an extra added element of I was there for a lot of these things you're calling out. It is a Sundance video provided by Sundance that I would have never paid this man to make. And it's that brutal honesty that I hope he continues to go with. Because, again, and my only reason for why, there's a lot of fabrication that happens in documentaries, you don't ever want to go the route that you end up becoming that all gas, no brakes, and then you fall off the pedal, right? So for me, I hope he continues making a lot of the stuff that he did with How To with John Wilson, all the previous ones that he did when he was on Vimeo, and I would freaking love to see him make a feature documentary. There's no way he hasn't had the ability to pitch a lot of things. And I think whenever he does his first features, you and I are going to be wherever that plays or whatever festival, we're going to be some of the first there to see it.
Absolutely. I mean, he did attach his name as an executive producer of this documentary that I think is in theaters now, Carpet Cowboys. I thought I wasn't really that taken with it. Yeah, it's all right.
It's all right. Yeah, it's all right.
It definitely feels like something that John Wilson would have done.
For sure. Yeah. All right. Well, farewell to John. Yeah. Farewell to Winning Time. But hello to all the Intercutie patrons over on Intercut, Patreon.com. We appreciate all of you.
Yes, we really love and thank our patrons for their support, which helps keeps this show going. Our Academy level patrons are Tushar, Cademan, Connor, Josh, May, Ricky, Joe, and Janicia. And of course, the producer level patrons are Yuden Veer and Toon. Thank you so much for your contributions, and a reminder that you too can become a member over at patreon.com/intercutpod, where you can sign up for patron benefits like early access to Intercut episode outlines, access to the private channels on our Intercut Discord, and an invitation to our monthly patron Google meetings, the next one of which I think has got to happen next week, because I don't have a lot of time between Toronto and New York. You got Chicago coming up too, so maybe next week we'll schedule that and send a message out to everybody. Also, another patron benefit, we'll be recording our top 10 movies of TIFF later tonight, and if you sign up for Patreon, you'll get that episode at least 24 hours before it is online.
Ooh,
so lots
with
of
some
cool
special
benefits.
Guests too.
Yeah. So if you want to get our picks for the best movies out of that festival earlier than all the other Intercuties, head over to patreon.com/intercutpod and sign up for as little as $1 a month.
Beautiful. As we wrap up this show, we're going to go through our top 5s of the past month that have been released. I'm going to start off with this one that I was able to catch in Chicago, Ernest and Celestine, A Trip to Gibberitia. I don't know if you ever saw the first one, but it's this cute animation between what I think is like a bear and a mouse. I don't even know. They've had a couple already, and this is the newest one that is getting released. I want to say it's in limited theaters right now. I think they're really adorable. I remember the first one being on my radar because it was like one of the top animations rated on IMDb, and they've continued it. It's really nice 2D hand-drawn animation. And for that, I would say keep this one on your radar. I'm not sure what the studio is for where it would come out when it's streaming, but I think that may be the easier way for people to catch it when it's out. When we left, there was a big series that came out, and I got to see inklings of it throughout. And while I have never seen or read the manga or the anime, One Piece is kind of fun, dude. I know there are people who have tattooed themselves, whose usernames are these characters. This is funny, bro. This is goofy. They have some Space Jam effects here because this guy can like bend around. It's about these pirates who are trying to go find this big treasure, and it's one of the biggest adaptations out there that already got a season 2. I know people were really up in arms on whether it was going to be good or not because, what is it, the Death Note wasn't that great.
Cowboy Bebop.
Still complaining about that one.
Yeah.
It seemed like this one pleased more fans than not. And as someone who's not a fan of it, I found it to be very enjoyable, very funny, very goofy. I'm not saying it's like perfect and is going to get me to watch the anime, but it got me to watch this series, and I'm looking forward to season 2. I thought it was pretty funny, and I thought the characters were enjoyable to watch. So
we previously watched One Piece Red, and I think we both were kind of like, we don't get it. We're so far behind. So I guess this provides a nice on-ramp for people who don't have the time to necessarily catch up with all the anime. And I was avoiding it for the reasons that you mentioned. It seemed like people are out on the idea of Netflix adapting anime into live action, but was surprised just like you to see a lot of people kind of vibing with it so far. So I guess maybe catch up.
So I'd have One Piece over on Netflix. Over on Mubi, a documentary that we had shouted out pretty much a year ago because we saw it at the New York Film Festival, and we sat there for what was, almost 2 hours, sitting there, squirming in our seats for what is a dissection of the human body. It goes through several procedures using these tiny, tiny cameras that are going through vessels. They're going into eyeballs, penises, everything in this movie that I think it is a crucial watch at home, because you will squirm. You can fast forward to certain things that you don't want to. I think there's one point that the movie makes that is insane, dealing with these two ladies who kind of like walk around a lot.
Yeah.
And while at first I felt like it really bogged the movie down and was like a little boring and repetitive, when you realize it's not just talking about the physical, that was kind of putting the camera outside to show you the mental of these two ladies who don't know where they're at, and how do you like kind of fix someone who's mentally not there, as it's intersplicing then going in through like intestines and they're cleaning it out. The footage in here is insane footage. You're going to see this kind of shared by people on Instagram or whatever who like putting those like disgusting things that causes you to stop. It's going to be coming from this movie. It gets some of the craziest shots out there. And I would definitely put it on your radar if you are interested in documentaries, or if you're interested in just the grotesque or the human body. Fabric of the Human Body, or as originally titled De Humani Corporis Fabrica, is a standout documentary, and it's a movie.
It is fascinating at the very least, and I would find a really hard time recommending it for most people, but like if the idea of surgical footage intrigues you, then like the visuals in this film are just like unparalleled. But it's also really interesting because it contrasts these like really mind-altering kind of close-up views of the human body with like the mundane in the dialogue that's happening, because you're hearing nurses and doctors mostly complain about
their hours
and their pay and the difficulty of working, and it is simultaneously like a showcase of the wonders of modern science in a hospital, and like an indictment of the French medical industry and how overworked these people are.
But with that ending, it's like a mechanic shop, right? Where they're overworked, except it ain't cars, it's human bodies that they're going through, and you want them well rested. But this was a standout. Definitely want to give it a shout out now that it's streaming. Another little cute one over on Netflix is Love at First Sight. It's got my girl, so I had to give it a shout out. A cute movie that kind of uses Jamila as a Cupid, airline hostess, a bunch of other jobs, that gets these two to kind of like fall in love with each other after they run into each other at the airport, head over to London. They both got different backstories, but it kind of brings them together, and I thought it was pretty honest in a lot of its dialogue as well. And then to wrap it up, if you did want to go to theaters, Dumb Money, which we reviewed right now, decent enough that I'd give it that $5 Tuesday recommendation, because it got a pretty solid cast and an interesting story that we're going to see a lot of. What about you, Zach?
Well, my pick for theaters is going to be out wider this weekend. I think there is a screening tonight, though, in some locations. Stop Making Sense, the 4K restoration, I believe, of the Jonathan Demme classic, widely considered to be one of, if not the best concert film. This movie that documents a Talking Heads show from 1983, features, some really stunning cinematography and editing, particularly the way the kinetic feel of the editing is so like, I think really accentuates the songs in a really strong way. We were talking before the stream that Talking Heads are one of those bands where like you might not remember all the songs they've done, but you hear them perform, or you hear it and it's like, oh right, that's them. Like they have many classics. And to see them at their height here, directed by one of the great directors at depicting music, right? Like Jonathan Demme was so talented at incorporating this in music in his films generally. He also has done the concert film a couple times in his career, but this is definitely the one that he's most widely known for. I've never had the chance to see it on the big screen, so I'm absolutely going to be in theaters to watch Stop Making Sense.
But you've seen this one?
Yeah. I was on Prime a little while ago. I don't know if it is right now.
So you recommend it, though, making it out for the IMAX? Okay.
Yeah. For sure. If you do want to stay home and watch something on Prime, Guy Ritchie's The Covenant is now available, or soon available. It is a pretty solid war film starring Jake Gyllenhaal and Dar Salim, who I thought was really, really excellent. Just the two of them bring so much pathos and like drama in their like story of this unlikely friendship, I guess you could call it. It's just got it's got a real like warmth to it underneath the sort of like combat. So it's a little bit badass, but also like kind of hard. I don't know, like inspiring in a weird way. I don't normally like feel that way about military films, but this one,
camaraderie between the two of them.
yeah, exactly. The camaraderie is just really solid here, and Jake Gyllenhaal is always solid. Guy Ritchie, I think, knows his way around an action sequence. I think it's a solid watch. I'm definitely excited for my dad to get a chance to watch this because it's his kind of movie.
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah. Over on Hulu, they've got Sanctuary. Speaking of two-handers, a film that I caught at TIFF last year. I think Amanda said it was her favorite out of the festival, and I liked it quite a bit as well. A really fun back and forth between Margot Qualley and Christopher Abbott with snappy dialogue and kind of like a perverse premise that it goes with in this movie about a hotel heir and his dominatrix. I think Margot Qualley in particular is just so dynamic in this movie. It's one of my favorite performances of the year. I hope it's the kind of movie.
Really? Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it's technically last year or this year, but she's so electric. Just you can't really take your eyes off of her in this film. I think the film sort of ends just as it felt like it was getting going to me. But
yes,
I'd also rather a film feel too short than too long. So I enjoyed Sanctuary quite a bit.
Amanda saw this one at Cannes. She had covered it with us
back in 2020 last year. Yeah,
she caught it at Cannes.
I don't think it was a Cannes movie.
Didn't she come into it saying that it was her favorite from that?
No,
Amanda, she made a video for it recently, so if you do end up catching it on Hulu, she's got a whole breakdown of it because I know it was one of her favorites, so you can double it up there.
Yeah, definitely recommend Sanctuary. Golda hits VOD.
You saw this?
I have not seen it, and I'm just curious about the makeup because we're all talking a lot about Bradley Cooper's nose right now, and no one is talking about Helen Mirren's.
Because ain't nobody seeing this movie, bro. Do you have a link? We both let it expire.
Yeah, I am fairly curious because Helen Mirren's a good actress. I have not heard great things about this one, but it is the anniversary of Yom Kippur this weekend, so.
So starve while you watch this. No popcorn.
My last pick, though, on VOD, the funniest movie of the year in my book. It is Bottoms, Emma Seligman and Rachel Sennett's throwback to Y2K horny teen comedies. I think this one is just so hilarious. I laughed my ass off both times that I saw this movie, and it's the kind of movie that I'll definitely catch again when I'm able to at home.
VOD already, damn.
Yeah.
Hulu, you saw that? Also got, which should be another recommendation over here.
Oh, Theater Camp.
Theater Camp. Take the shortcut here, going to IO.
Yeah.
Theater Camp's on, right? Just go to her. You'll be able to go through every movie in 2023.
Yeah, TMNT's on VOD too.
She's the new 5 Degrees. Yeah, dude. TMNT's coming to Paramount Plus in like a week, dude. Like, it's crazy. But yeah, Theater Camp would be another one to double up. Get a twofer with IO. But damn, bro, Bottoms already.
Yeah, I mean, it had a decent week or two in theaters, and I think it made its budget back, but not exactly like a behemoth.
That's good though.
Yeah. I mean, look, we need comedies in theaters, so hopefully they keep doing it. Hopefully they keep trying.
Yes, sir. So overall, if you are at home looking for some recommendations, we have a good animation with Ernest and Celestine, their newest one called The Trip to Gibberitia. One Piece, which I was surprised how good it was. As a non-anime fan, might have me watching some of the other recommendations y'all always keep pitching us. Fabric of the Human Body over on Mubi, if you have the guts to watch it. Love at First Sight over on Netflix was a really cute rom-com, talking about rom-coms. And then Dumb Money out in theaters.
For me, also in theaters, I think you should check out Stop Making Sense, the re-release. Great concert film. Also would recommend, now that it's on Prime, Guy Ritchie's The Covenant.
Prime
really
is such a place for this.
It is really like a Prime ass movie.
Like, fits perfectly in there.
The horniest best time of the year is over on Hulu for Sanctuary. Dug that one with Margot Qualley and Christopher Abbott. Mild curiosity about Golda, mostly about Helen Mirren's makeup in Golda, but you know, it's Jewish holiday season. I gotta throw one out there.
The first Intercutie Patreon watch along, Golda.
And then my biggest recommendation of the week, now that it's going to be available on VOD, Bottoms, the funniest movie you'll see in 2023.
Bottoms at the top right there. Let us know your picks for what you're watching this week, what you're looking forward to, because we are in the depths of movie season. Right after this, we're going to be covering all of the movies that are upcoming. That still doesn't include all the movies you might still be anticipating, but you can follow all of that here on Intercut. You can follow me over at LME Movies on all social media. That's all for this week's show. Zach, where can people find more from you?
You can find more from me at Zshevich on whatever social media you like, as well as at Multiplex Show on YouTube or TikTok.
A reminder that you can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, all your favorite podcatchers. You can catch the live video here on YouTube.com, where we go through the weekend must-watch every Monday. Big shout out to all the Intercuties and everyone who listens live. We really appreciate that. For all of the listeners who give us that 5-star review, we're getting really close. I mean, we were ready to apply for Rotten Tomatoes. Then we, on our way to TIFF, everybody started hating Rotten Tomatoes. So maybe just keep giving us the 5-star reviews, but we may not need it for the Rotten Tomatoes score. But hey, who knows? They change it all the time. I'm waiting for Letterboxd to be the new Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
That once they start giving out badges and verifications for who like the top reviewers are there, it really is just a matter of what the next marketing thing is going to be.
You know, I just followed, there's an unofficial Pauline Kael account. There's an unofficial Roger Ebert account. So now, like, I can look up their reviews of those movies.
From the past.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought they were, like, pretending if they were still... Oh, okay.
No, they're not doing Pauline Kael cosplay, no.
Gotcha. Okay, I thought it was, like, the Stanley Kubrick Twitter account that's promoting all the new movies. All right. Well, hey, that is interesting though. That's a good way to be able to find it, because Letterboxd has become the new. We were at TIFF. What was everybody using? Letterboxd to decide. Okay, I should skip Poolman. So yeah, it's the next big service. Don't forget to leave us a comment, drop a like, follow the socials at Intercut Pod, and until next time, keep watching movies, or the nun's gonna come get you.
Ah.